Well, great day, everyone, and welcome to Spirit and Mind, where we discuss current affairs with faith and mental health perspectives. I'm Bishop Guy Robinson. I'm blessed to be with you today, to have you joining us. And of course, Dr. Shepard is with us, and it's always a blessing to have Dr. Shepard with us. Good day, Dr. Shepard.
Hey, good day, Bishop. How are you doing?
All is well. Thanks be to God.
Good, good. And hopefully everyone out there is doing well. It was a nice Sunday here. I hope that everyone out there enjoyed a wonderful Thanksgiving day. We celebrated Thanksgiving a few days ago, and I pray that that day went well and hopefully all is going okay within your family. Even if dinner didn't turn out the way in which you wanted to be, or even a little bit of family drama, I pray that it still worked out and that it was resolved. And I wish everyone a wonderful holiday season. For those who are out there who may be of the Jewish faith, Hanukkah begins today, and then we have Christmas will be coming up on the 25th, and Kwanzaa. So I know that different people do celebrate various holidays during this season. So we want to let everyone know that we wish you a wonderful holiday season and a Merry Christmas during this time.
Absolutely. And we're grateful that you're with us today on Spirit and Mind. And I want to encourage you and humbly request that you let someone know we're on. Feel free to share. We have several different ways of being connected. Good evening to our Spirit and Mind family, Sandra McRae and Charlotte Green, and good evening. So grateful for your presence, and feel free to share. Let someone know that we're on. And again, we'll be continuing and picking up from our last subject topic. And Dr. Shepard has already referenced our awareness of this holiday season, holy day season, quite literally. And we'll be getting into what we hope to be some suggestions to navigating through what may be perhaps some of the more challenging aspects of the holiday season. And of course, we stand on the hope and the help that this season represents, particularly in our Christian Holy Day season. This represents hope. It represents help in what is in the nature, one of the seasons where there's more darkness than light. And yet the words of the prophet stay true. The people who once walked in darkness have seen a great light, said the prophet Isaiah. And so we hope to be a little bit of that light, and to share a little bit of that love and light and help and hope, even in this season that is challenging and perhaps has some emotional triggers for some. And so we want to share what we hope to be, again, hope and help for you and the others. So please share that. Dr. Shepard has ways that we can stay in touch. And Dr. Shepard, please feel free to share with our audience how we can stay connected.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to greet some of the people who are out there,
Yeah.
and some of the folks. Mother Hattie Cobb is out there, KB, and saw Sarita Watson this afternoon or morning afternoon while I was at the church where she attends, and Juanita Henderson and Shirley Vaughn. And come on, let us know that you're out there, and let us know that you are. There she is. Letitia is there. Dr. Malcolm. And thank you for letting us know that you're here, and let us know how your Thanksgiving season or weekend turned out, Audrey Hill. So we can go to our ways in which you can contact us. And so many people do just that. And we are so thankful that you do that. So keep it up. Please, please, please do that. And so you can reach me various different ways. There is my contact information portals, if you would. And you can go to my website, drjohnsonshepard.com, and that will go to my email address. And wherever you find it convenient to reach out, please do that. And if you're in need of some direct care services, I may be able to point you in the right direction. So yes, please do just that. And then, of course, Bishop C. Guy Robinson, you can reach out to the Bishop of Mental Health. That's what they call him, and that's what he has been positioned as for right now. I'm sure more to come. And so email him, and he can lead again, direct you in the right path. And if you are looking for a church home, he didn't pay me to say this, but if you need to check out a couple churches here in Baltimore area, he is the pastor of the Tabernacle, and you can go over there and check him out on his YouTube page on sermons. And it's amazing what God has done for him and continues to do for him as he travels the length and breadth of this country. And I'm sure the messages are reaching across the nation. So thankful for what God is doing in his life. And so, yes, reach out to us. We are touchable.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And we enjoy the connectivity and the relationship. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being with us. And just maybe we'll do a little bit of a runway, and that'll get us off the ground into uh, um, new heights for what we want to discuss today. But just by way of a bit of a recap, Dr. Shepard, we were talking, and I have been talking about suggestions for coping with grief. And we've talked about grief in several ways, but we've talked about grief in terms of being a natural or normal reaction to the experience of loss, the loss of someone or something of sentimental or significant value to us. And so it automatically implies that there is attachment there. And so now the detachment has brought this experience we call grief. It comes in many forms. And so the form that we may be talking about this week may be different from what we experienced in a previous season. Because, of course, loss can come in the form of people, a change in a relationship. So it's not just the loss of someone existentially, as in the death of a significant other, but it can also be this change in the status of a relationship. You broke up with somebody, to be quite honest. Relationships change, the context of them change. We used to hang out more. Life has taken us in different directions. Sometimes there's no big dramatic moment, but just the course of life takes people in different directions. Grew up together, went to high school together, went to college together, and then life took us in different directions. So there's the loss of people, there's the loss of health by way of sickness, disability, or an accident. The loss of property and things by way of natural disaster, theft, or change in circumstances. The loss of places, as in relocation. That can be both exciting and grievous to relocate. Change in position. Retirement is certainly a celebratory moment, but it can be a happy, sad occasion, as we are aware that a previous season is coming to an end. So these are just a few of the various expressions of loss by which we can have a grief reaction. And so we're just talking about some of those. And Dr. Shepard, you want to recap or take us into new areas from here as he feels led?
Yeah. So thank you. Let me just tell you, Bishop, it is just honestly today just was another grief reaction. Even I saw Sarita Watson at her pastor's pastoral anniversary today, and even since that time, come to find out that an associate of mine back home in Chicago, same age as me, did not wake up this morning. Um, just he was literally the media guy for one of the prominent churches there in Chicago, the Freedom Temple Church of God in Christ. And I salute those who might be out there watching. One of my good friends is the Pastor Billy Jamel Evans. And this was actually Bishop, this is actually the location of where my aunt's funeral was that we just had 2 weeks ago. And so this gentleman oversees the media department for them, and would follow him on Twitter, was just texting. You know, Cody Kelly, who's been on here, you know, Cody preached today, and Cody was texting him his PowerPoint presentation for the message just last night, and over in the night must have had an aneurysm, and did not wake up this morning. Um, just tough, 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 tough. And I'm saying this not just to be repetitive, because all of us, we can get on here and provide our own grief stories. I'm providing this because, Bishop, I caught myself, even as I was talking to Cody and Pastor Evans after I found out, I found myself saying, wow, I may be in that area to attend the funeral. And as soon as I said that, Bishop, it was like something hit me and said, no, you need to make sure that you're together. I said, whoa, it clicked. And I'm thankful for that reaction, truthfully, because what I'm finding out, and I really want to hear from the people as we're going through here, what I'm finding out is that we have become numb to the losses that have occurred continuously throughout this time. I say that because it's almost like it's a normal reaction to say, okay, let me go and prepare myself to go to this funeral. Hold up one second. We don't need to attend every funeral of a person who we know who died right through here. Now, I'm not coming on as your physician to tell you what to do. All right. That is not my position. I make that quite clear. I am coming on as one who serves as an advisor consultant to have you to think and to challenge you, because I had to do it for myself, Bishop. I said, "Whoa, wait a minute. Here I am running again to another funeral after I have already encountered two significant deaths in 2 months. And even this week, Bishop, I'm scheduled to go to two different funerals. It's almost as if we get so fast and we don't even think, that we don't have time to settle down and make sure that we're okay. That's one of the areas that I really want to focus on today. And it just dropped on me within the last hour before the broadcast, because that's when I found out about this. I was thinking about other things, but honestly, that's where I feel and feel even led and passionate about it, even as I speak now, because I want you today, as we're talking through Spirit and Mind, check yourself. This is time for self-inventory. We need to make sure that we're not becoming numb or have already become numb and just operating through through the emotions. I'm sorry, through the motions of just saying we're present for somebody, as Bishop has stated last week. That was so well articulated, as how Job's friends were present, which is wonderful. But some of us were present, but we're not present there. And honestly, you just sitting there with the bereaved, but your mind's not there, you're not present. Honestly, that could work against you and work against a family. So as we delve into this discussion today, I want us just to take into account, just as I had to do for myself today, Lord, help me that if I have become numb, help me to be able to feel. If you remember, I talked last week about operations and how you have to make sure that that as you go through the pain, that you're just not numbing the pain, that you're actually working through the pain so that you can get to the other side of recovery. And sometimes what that means is you need to go somewhere and sit down. I'm just going to say it like that. And be in your own grief and start running here and there to, I know you are a certain position. I know they expect to see you there. I know that they want to see you there. I hear you. I've been there. I feel the pressure. But what we have got to learn is how to be able to be present at the right time and be in the right space so that we can be effective in what we're doing. I'm just going to stop right there, Bishop.
No, that is a powerful point, and it really refers back to something we discussed in the previous Spirit of Mind of last week, even as we were talking about the make, move, meet, and really we're going to be revisiting those because different things that we're discussing come under those categories. Um, under the meet, MEET. Of one of the ways of coping with grief, of course, we said last week was having relationships. That's because decreased socialization or just not wanting to be with anybody is sometimes one of the symptoms of a grief reaction. So there's a balance to be achieved here that is so very important. And today, what I hear is the importance of, while it is important to be social, as you were talking about going to all of these different events, it's so important to be social with boundaries.
Mhm.
That boundary means there's sometimes when it's okay to say, I can't do this today.
Mhm.
Um, one of the things that is suggested as a coping strategy for grief is to have an accountability partner, even sometimes when we go to certain events. You may go to an event and you don't know it, but something may happen in the course of that event that triggers something. And so we need an accountability partner to say, hey, listen, when I give you the eye, let's get out of here. Like, get me out of here for my own well being. I'll go,
Mhm.
but I'm only going to stay about 30 minutes and then I need to go. Or it's okay to say, listen, as Dr. Shepard has just brought to our attention today, I've been to a couple of funerals back to back, and I got a lot of motion, but I haven't really had a lot of healing, and I need to kind of sit with some stuff, and I don't really need to like mess with this wound that's already still fresh. Not today. Listen, I'm praying for you from over here. My heart is with you. These are very real conversations and very real, healthy situations to be sociable with boundaries, because that's a part of that self care piece that is so very important. So I hear you, Dr. Shepard. I hear you real well. I think that's good counsel for us to consider today.
Yeah, thank you, Audrey. Here, sociable with boundaries. Because if you don't have boundaries, you find yourself being stretched beyond your limits. Um, and we have to understand that in the culture that we live in, we live in a westernized culture, capitalistic society, which teaches us that we're to work until the end. That is what our society culture teaches us, and that's not necessarily how everyone is taught, whether or not you know that.
Yeah, yeah,
And we have to understand that just because we're taught that way doesn't mean that that's the only right way to do something.
yeah,
I I think sometimes in America, United States of America, we think that our way is the only way and is the right way.
yeah,
I'm so blessed, Bishop, being able to travel as I know that you have to international countries and be able to see how other people do things. It really has opened up my mind to see, wow, they're doing it this way and yet still getting results, good results, sometimes even better results than what we do over here. And there's even a greater appreciation as they operate. And so we have to understand that in our culture, especially with our jobs, we don't if we don't know how to be able to tell people that, hey, I need to have a mental health day, and we're seeing that more and more happening. I even have seen it within schools now, where students are able to take mental health days. I've seen it where jobs are allowing you to have those days. Um, and think about it, Bishop. Um, there's even certain jobs that when you have had multiple losses, such as this, you may not be able to get the time off for grief.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we
Absolutely.
we provide time off for the birth of a child. You know, we provide some time off if there's an injury, typically more physical than mental. I know that just because when people come to me for FMLA or for any other type of disability, let me tell you, emotional, mental disabilities, that's hard to come by. Um, really, it's easier to get a waiver for physical disabilities. But we need to go back and re-examine. I would even challenge the believer, and then Bishop will step in here and help me out, of course. But I would even challenge the believer. I would even challenge those spiritual leaders that you need to build in mental health days for yourself. You need to make sure that you have those days built in as you go into 2022. I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to provoke you today. We're getting ready to go into the month of December. You need to be thinking already now. I started doing that, Bishop, for my own personal calendar, my own professional calendar. I started making some changes last year. I said, I am not staying in this office past a certain time. I said, I don't care. When you all go home, I'm going home. And they just
Yeah,
look,
yeah,
you know. And
yeah,
it wasn't that they can say, because I do my job, but I said, I do my work. I'm not staying here as late as I have been doing because I felt the shift that was happening of me being deteriorated. That's I'm not going to do it no more. And so we have to do that as we're going through this time that we're experiencing this trauma. This is a traumatic season that we're in,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and it's not going away. We now have the new variant Omicron,
yeah,
and I don't want to digress too much. And so that has now heightened people's anxiety back up again.
yeah,
Um, So as we go through this grief, I know where I'm at. When we go through this grief where we're at, be able to look and say, how am I able to take time off? I was talking with someone, I'm going to conclude with this. I was talking with someone, a dear friend of mine, who lost her son. Her son was killed tragically in a car accident this year, Bishop, 31 years old. Um, and she's been going. Her father, I don't want to say too much because then I might expose a person. But she's a believer and she works well. And but she told me yesterday, she said, Shepherd, as soon as one event is over, I'm going into hiding. She's not going into hiding to do anything but she just said, I'm cutting the phone off. If they need me, they're gonna need to reach out to somebody else because I need to take time for myself so that I can move forward. Um, as we get ready for 2022, which is what is right in this series that Bishop and I wanted to do as we prepare, we've got to do this. And we've been talking about how grief really negatively affects our ability to move forward. And so I hope people are hearing me today. I'm going to stop right there. I want Letitia to mention how physical presence and what did she say? Physical presence and
yeah.
motion requires two mindsets.
Right.
Um, she says here, and I'm going to conclude physical presence does not require an emotional connection or mentality. I could be physically present and be on autopilot emotionally. Absolutely, Dr. Malcolm. I don't necessarily have to connect socially or emotionally. Woo-wee.
Right. Which is so important for us who would end up thinking back to where you started that I just got to go to everything. And when I see all these dates and commitments lining up, and I try to make all of them, and all of them are compounding my grief, really, and re-triggering. It's a helpful reminder of what you and Dr. Malcolm are talking about now to say, hey, just because I'm not, just because I'm there doesn't mean I'm there. I could, I might, being present does not mean that I'm productive. It might actually be counterproductive. And the centurion, that's what I thought of when I was reading Dr. Malcolm's insight. The centurion in the scriptures that comes to Jesus and talks about his servant being ill. And he says, to Jesus, he says, you don't have to be present. He says, just speak a word from right here.
Mm.
And if I know that my servant is in your heart and mind from right here, it can be productive over there.
Wow.
So not present physically, but Jesus speaks a word from where he is. And from where he is, he's not physically, quote unquote, present, but his emotional and spiritual in tuneness changes somebody's situation. And so that's just something to be mindful of when we ask ourselves about having these boundaries as we are being social, because we also have to be careful that our busyness is not avoidant behaviors,
Right.
because it's so important that we take moments to sit with this. For a minute, grief also has to be acknowledged. I'm not saying to sit in and have a, but we think sometimes, and you said something so powerful, the Protestant work ethic drives so much of American culture. And it is not the only perspective on life. The Protestant work ethic says for every problem, I got to work harder. And that can sometimes be avoidant behavior. There's a difference between working harder and working smarter, first of all. And so that's a very important thing. But we glorify that actually. Uh, I'm reminded of our generation now that says, I'm grinding. I think of while you were talking, I looked up grind. It says to reduce something to small particles or powder by crushing it, to pulverize, to granulate, to reduce to grit. And so, is it really a good thing when we say we're grinding? And so it just pauses us to think, and that's all we're trying to do. And I know that there are exceptions and conditions, and with every metaphor, there's a break in the analogy. Even as we're using this metaphorical language, I'm with you. But the important thing is that we take the time to do what really what psychoanalysis called. Freud called it grief work. And I like that term grief work because it means doing the work of getting through this grief process. It's work. It's not just waiting to feel better. But it is doing some intentional things that we talked about last week. Accepting it, admitting it, make, move, meet. Today we're talking about meeting and being sociable with boundaries. The idea of asking ourselves, am I emotionally present or am I just physically present? I like that song my mama used to sing way back in the day. My body's here, but my mind is on the other side of town. You got to be a certain age to remember that song. But I'm having flashbacks of her singing that. But it makes the point. But to ask ourselves these questions is really work, because it's introspection. It's again what we call grief work. But that's where most of the work and the progress happens. In what counseling calls middle phase work. When I'm in the middle of it and I'm looking inward and I'm asking myself hard questions and I'm dealing with the ambivalence and my thought patterns are being challenged and my way of looking at life is being challenged. Last week we said that the paradox sometimes of the grief process is that we can be doing some of our best healing when we feel the most uncomfortable.
Yes.
I'm asking myself some real hard questions. Why?
Wow.
Why am I doing so much? Why am I all over the place? Do I really have to go to this? When we feel the most uncomfortable, we just may be doing some of our best healing.
Yeah, this is wonderful, Bishop. I was again reading some of the comments that people are putting up, and I'm thankful for those who are watching. Um, One of the things that our engineer just asked me about was mental checkups. That was the question that she asked. She said, what kind of mental checkup should we do for ourselves? And that's what's necessary, because that's what we're talking about also, in addition to being sociable with boundaries, but also doing a mental checkup. So some of the things that we've already talked about, that's just kind of walk through some of these things. If anyone has heard me talk, I talk enthusiastically about PCWC. That is the definition of mental health. And so that's part of your checkup. So every time you get up in the morning, you should check your PCWC. Check your PCWC. Well, what is PCWC if you never heard me speak about it before? It is your potential, cope, work, and contribution. That is the definition according to the World Health Organization. I just made it into my own terms of what mental health is. It is a state of being where every individual recognizes his or her own potential, can cope with the stresses of life, work productively and fruitfully, which is what we're just talking about, and make a contribution to our community. So when you are checking your PCWC, so this is part of the mental checkup. Each morning that you wake up, recognize that God has given you new mercies every morning and you have new potential. Potential is your ability to work in an area that you may not have worked in before, or to do new things in the area that you're working in. It is the untapped skills and talents that God has placed inside of you. And so when you're doing your mental checkup, remember, some of us, we look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't even recognize our own potential. That might mean that there's something off with our mental health balance. I'm not saying that you're off. Hear me clearly. I'm saying that there may be something off with our mental health balance if we are unable to recognize our potential. Then C, cope. Look how you're coping. Be honest with yourself. How are you coping with the deaths? How are you coping with the stressors? How are you coping with the different things that are occurring in your life individually, within your family, and then within our society? You know, you have to look at those different spheres because you could be coping okay with how society is dealing with things, but you're a wreck in your life. You're a wreck on your job. You're a wreck in your family. You're a wreck in the church. That is a problem. But I tell you, you have to know and check your ability to cope. That's why I said it. When I was transparent again, I love this where I can do that. And it's required if we're going to be able to help people. I said, why am I running to another funeral? I Let me settle down, make sure I can cope with what has already been given to me thus far. And then look at how you're working. That's another mental health checkup. If you recognize that you're not getting things done like you used to, in some cases, Bishop, that's okay because we have to remember we're going through a period. All right. Through is the operative word there. But you may not be able to accomplish as much as you would because we're going through this season, but at least you're still working and moving. My concern, and I've said this several times, is those people who get stuck. That's what I get concerned on. I'm concerned about when people get paralyzed by the grief, paralyzed by the loss. That's what I get concerned about because that's when when you're paralyzed, that's when the toxins, if I get scientific on you, then think of this. You think about even different animals. When you flip a bug over, they don't like being on their back because why? They're paralyzed and the toxins within their body build up and they end up dying. That's why you see those different bugs trying to flip back over because they want to get those toxins out. It's the same thing in humans. When you do not utilize the muscles and the different nerves and different things that God has placed within you, even the brain cells that God has given to you, and you become paralyzed, the toxins build in and those parts can die. So that's why we have to make sure that we're working, and not just working, as Dr. Malcolm Bishop has talked about, but working with productivity and with fruitfulness, and then making a contribution. I'm going to stop here. But that's some of the things that I would just start with in regards to your mental health checkup.
Absolutely, absolutely. And some may remember, Dr. Shepard, our SIP and C
Mm-hmm.
uh, analysis, which really parallels. We used that acrostic SIP and C, but it really does parallel a 7 phase or 7 category model of self care inventory used in some counseling models. Um,
Yeah.
those areas being asking ourselves, how am I doing? SIP, C, SIP, SEE. How am I doing spiritually in this season? How am I doing intellectually? How am I doing physically? How am I doing socially, emotionally, economically?
Yeah.
And some add that 6 in our model, some add and break up family
Mm-hmm.
with my close family as opposed to my social circle. But they're the areas, and put a number on it because that may give you some sense of measurable goals. So on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being needs a lot of work, not too good, I'm not okay at all. 10 being I'm great. Now use that 1 to 10 scale on each of those sections. Spiritually, how's my devotional life in this season, even while I'm grieving? How has grief affected me socially? How has this pandemic affected me? I've shared with you before that one study showed that even for spiritual leaders, 49% of spiritual leaders surveyed, that's nearly half of those surveyed, said that this season presented a challenge with keeping devotional disciplines. That means praying, singing praises to God, reading the Bible, not for church, but for personal edification. That means this season has affected me spiritually. So grade yourself. 1 again, meaning it's critical. It's not good at all. 10 being it's great. So if so for 49% of the pastors say, whoa, this is on the negative side of the 5. It's somewhere between 1, 2. I'm not doing that well spiritually in this season. Intellectually, what are you learning? What are you reading? How is your understanding of life being stimulated? Because what am I learning even from the things in life that aren't going my way? What am I learning from my disappointments as well as my successes? How are you doing physically? Shared with you before that again, this has affected people physically. Even the pandemic has this made me more sedentary? Have I gained weight? How do I feel? What is my psychomotor? How 1 meaning I need some work. 10 meaning I'm doing great. How has this affected me socially? What I know we got to physically distance, but do I still have some people in my circle and some accountability partners? Do I still have those 3 categories that I talked about before? Do I have people that I look up to, people that I learn from, and then secondly, people that I impart to, and then thirdly, peers with whom I hang out. Pedagogues, meaning teachers. Do I have some teaching voices in my life? Mentors, role models, peers? Do I have friends with whom I can hang out and who can say, listen, you're not right? um, and then proteges, people that I'm pouring into. So, how am I doing socially? How am I doing emotionally? Am I all over the place? Am I having difficulties finding pleasure? Am I experiencing it? A big word, anhedonia, but the inability to find pleasure in life. How am I doing emotionally? How am I doing economically? And because money is a stressor or a blesser, depending on. So 1 to 10, and then just start grading. And once that is, you can revisit that just like we're revisiting it today, because in one season, I may be doing great socially or physically, but not doing so well economically or emotionally. And then in another season, I could be doing great economically and emotionally, but not doing so well with this loss spiritually. I'm wrestling with, why would God allow this to happen?
Wow.
Why would this happen even now? I
Wow.
mean, this just isn't right.
Yeah.
And why me? And God, I love you. That means I'm doing well in some other areas, but spiritually, I'm having some issues. And so it doesn't have to be the same. So it's not a one-time checkup.
Mm.
It's
Right.
do it on the regular, to keep your heart in tune, as the old saints used to sing. That's so very important.
Yeah. No, thank you, Bishop. Because I was just telling someone that today, actually, there should not be a time where we go without a checkup. I know babies, once they are born, mothers are taking their child for the different wellness checkups. I pray to God they are. They're getting the vaccinations. I pray to God that they are. So there's different milestones, and we learn this as we go through medicine. But sometimes this happens when we get to about that 19, 20, 21-year old age group, and like between 21 and 40, it's like there's a dip where people just stop going to the doctor, and that shouldn't happen. We should still be going to get our assessments, our mental health checkups, our wellness checkups every year. All right. So I want to even encourage somebody, digress just a second here. If you haven't gotten your wellness check for 2021, let's get it done. Let's not go into 2022 and we have not been to the doctor. So I want to encourage you to do that, because when you go to the doctor now, many primary care doctors, Bishop, they'll actually do a mental health screening for you. It's part of the wellness exam. Uh, it's something that's called the PHQ 10 or 9, depending on, I think it's a 9 actually. And it's a patient health questionnaire. And it allows for people to give a self assessment regarding their mental health. And so this is so important. We have not deterred from where we're talking about with grief, but this is what we need to do now. I want to reiterate something. Then I'm going to show just even as we were talking. So even as we talk, many times you may see us jotting down because we're literally doing some investigation as we're talking. I'm going to encourage people to make note of your job, professional calendar, whatever position you are in. Schedule your mental health days now. Okay. You just don't know how that's going to benefit you as you go throughout 2022. Do it now. Dr. Shepard, I don't have that time. I need the money. Let me tell you something. When you don't take care of yourself physically or mentally, you won't be able to make the money. So even if you do have the vacation, even though you may be able to have the time to work, you won't be there. You won't be able to work productively and fruitfully, which is part of the PCWC. Bishop, let me show you this question, or at least ask this question, and it's such an interesting question. There's a 3-minute mental health quiz. You can go on the internet and Google. I'm okay with that. I just get scared when people start diagnosing themselves according to what they see on these quizzes. All right, so please don't do that. But you can take these quizzes. It's good. It's good for your mind. But there was this one, even as we were speaking, I just looked up real quick, and they asked this question that says, how much loss are you prepared to take over the next 1 year with a view to future gains? Wow. I'll say it again. How much loss are you prepared to take over the next 1 year with a view to future gains? Now, I'm not talking about economics. So many times people are talking about that with investments and, and their stocks and their portfolios. I'm talking about within your own mental health and your own emotional well-being. Mhm. How much? And see, Bishop, I'll conclude with this. It really told off on us when the pandemic started, because there were some people who we all went through, but they were able to bounce back a little bit quicker because they had been preparing themselves, not even knowing that a pandemic would strike, but they've been preparing themselves for the crises so that when this crisis hit, they already had some foundation so that they can move forward. I'm going to challenge you. Man, I feel the spirit now. That question really hit me. I'm going to challenge you. You need to take inventory today before December 31st happens, before even November 30th happens. Take inventory. How much loss are you prepared to take in 2022 with the mindset that there are future gains that God has for me? This is what we're talking. This is the benefit of being a part of Spirit of Mind broadcast, because we can't wait until 2022 arrives and think we're going to be okay because we made it to the next year. 2020, 2021 has shown us, and remember, I mentioned this stat last year. We have already experienced more death in this year than we did in 2020 due to the pandemic, and we're still almost 6 weeks still out, a little less now, 5 weeks. Yeah. So that tells me that we need to prepare ourselves. God is getting us ready. Bishop was talking about some older songs, and I thought he was going to go to that song about "My Mind Is Gone." I was like, okay, yeah, I really want you to explain that song, because I I never understood. So I thought that was the tagline you were going with, Bishop, about my mind is gone. But anyway, but if you think about some of the older songs about getting your house in order, right? Getting your house, making preparation to see the Lord. And I'm not giving the correct lyrics. Bishop helped me on that. But there's songs that we used to sing back in the day. I used to hear them about making preparation so that we can have our house in order. But we don't hear. Well, all we live for is now. I want it now, and we don't prepare. And again, that's a generality, but we have to do better in making those preparations.
Oh, Dr. Shepard, that's the close right there. Um, you're reminding me of that question right there. Really goes to the heart of something that uh, um, uh, Judith Voiced calls, who was psychoanalytically trained. She calls it necessary losses.
Mm,
Necessary losses are defined as the things we must give up to grow up. uh, the
mm,
things we must give up to grow up. Here's the scriptural inspiration. Paul says, when I was a child,
mhm.
I spoke as a child, I thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. Because again, we started off talking about loss comes in different forms.
Right.
Um, and so sometimes that's why even graduations are celebratory, but also weeping happens, because some people are aware. Parents sometimes start weeping because they're aware that their child, even as they are moving forward, the parent has to get ready to let go because they're about to leave the nest.
Mhm.
So there's a loss that is in there that is necessary for the promotion. Paul says, forgetting those things that are behind me, which really means to put away, so that I can reach for what lies ahead of me. That's the kind of question that's asking. And there's some things we have to kind of get rid of. And when we sometimes mourn those, sometimes we construct false selves. And we have to deal with those images of immortality, images of perpetual youth, images of invincibility. When we let those go, we'll start doing those regular checkups, like Dr. Shepard was alluding to, and that's important because sometimes asking ourselves that question, we got to be ready to deal with that because it can keep us from moving forward. Sometimes the fear and the anticipatory grief, the worry about things we might lose. What do? Sometimes in friends, you take your vocations take you in different directions.
Right.
You're called to do this. This is your purpose. This is how you're going to be fulfill your potential, how you're going to make a healthy contribution, and this is going to be your life's work. But your friend that you grew up with has a different assignment. Now you got to go this way and they got to go that way. You're either going to embrace that necessary loss or be arrested in your development by the fear of loss. So that anticipatory grief can keep us frozen and not willing to let go of the things that need to be released. Because what essentially that question is asking, Dr. Shepard, you were talking, saying, what are you willing to release for the increase?
Wow.
And so that's a faith move, because I have to believe that what I'm coming into is going to be worth what I had to grieve and release. That's what keeps us going. If you're in school, you got to see yourself as you are social circles and they going out to a restaurant and you study it. You got to say, well, that was a loss. My relationship is changing, but I see myself crossing the stage and moving in my next assignment and purpose. These are the essential questions, because here it is. If you don't let it go and we hold on to it just to feel comfortable, the greater you in you still won't let you be comfortable.
Wow.
It'll say, why you missed it. You missed. The Bible says God has put eternity in the heart of man. It says that in Ecclesiastes 3. Think about what that means. I know it's poetic, but think about what that means in terms of an existential psychology kind of thing. It says God has put eternity in the heart of man, heart being our inner selves. So inside of me, there is a consciousness of something that's greater than my present experience. And I can't fully explain it, but I know that I am supposed to become, that I have more. Let's go back to Dr. Shepard's on the World Health Organization thing. I know there's this internal consciousness that God put in me of my potential. And if I'm going to fulfill my potential, there's some things I have to be willing to release. And if I don't fulfill my potential, I won't feel productive. And I won't really be able to cope because I'll be out of my purpose.
Yeah.
And then I won't really be making the contribution to the larger community and society that I'm supposed to be making. And that's how these things intersect. And that's what I'm hearing here. And Dr. Shepard alluded to it when he was talking about getting, when you go even for certain medical examinations, getting a mental health, because what we're realizing is that wellness is really an ecosystem and not a compartmentalization.
That's right.
That it really is more related, and that really is, I gotta stop here, but if you want to go to the sociology, that really is part of the actually our African roots. We come from a culture where things are really interconnected. Compartmentalization works for academics. It has some very strong roots in European ideology, where everything is compartmentalized. But Eastern spirituality and philosophy, which includes our African indigenous ways of looking, see these things more as interconnected and interdependent, even though they have independent identities. One affects the other. Absolutely. And we're realizing this in our psychosomatic wellness connections and in social factors and all of these sip and see. It's basically trying to say that these areas really do affect others spiritually, intellectually, physically, socially, emotionally, economically. It's all connected, and that sense of feeling that I have potential and having ability to have healthy coping mechanisms and to be able to be productive in my work so that I can make the contribution to something bigger than myself. Health of self and others. It's all really more interconnected than it is separate. And so we pray that you would prosper in all things and be well. I know we're getting to the end of our time, so Dr. Shepherd, please have the closing words, and then we'll close out from here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's good. Thank you, Bishop, for the summation. Thank you, Dr. Malcolm. And the message I heard today also was relating to releasing and receiving. And we're going to hear those messages. My challenge to you is not just hear the word, but let's be doers of the word. That's not just for Dr. Malcolm, that's for all of us. This season that we're in right now literally has shifted the whole ecosystem. Bishop used that word, of the church world, or our whole society. Honestly, it is shaking us up. And there's some things that, as the shaking has occurred, we have to let go. And as I heard the message today, there's some seeds that have been sown that happened even before the pandemic, that if you're willing to let some things go, there's a greater harvest, there's a greater increase for you. And so thank you, Bishop, for saying that. That's so powerful. And so keep your ears tuned. The Lord is speaking. And we want to make sure that we're not just hearing, as we do hear the word of God, but let's be doers of his word too, as it says. You can find us. You can look for us. Reach out to us. I'm thankful for the people who I saw, Bishop. So many people were saying that, oh, my Lord, I watch you. I watch you. I watch you every week. And the pastor, even up there, has declared that people getting free counseling each week. I said, I don't know about that. You better be careful about that. You're going to get me in trouble. Yeah.
Give me yourself to pray about.
Right. You know, we might have to have a disclaimer scrolling across the bottom. So we will make sure that we know, that people know that this is yeah, thank you, Sister Sarita Watson. But yeah, please reach out to us. Let's put our information up once more. Reach out to me through email, Gmail account, various social media platforms. You can go back and watch so many. Bishop, you know, as we have gone through and have more people asking for people to come, for us to come speak, they go to our YouTube pages, our social media pages, and look up our stuff. And so please go there, go to Bishop's, and that way you can be a part of all that he has done. And we're thankful that we have these platforms where people can actually go back and watch and rewatch and replay, and let people know how they can live, and live not just to be living, but let's live abundant lives. All right, Bishop, I am done.
I'm done too. I'm gonna close with this. We were talking. I know we got to close. Here's the word of the Lord. This was what came to my mind because as you and Dr. Malcolm just said, today was about releasing and receiving. So I'm going to stay with that. Genesis 12. Now the Lord said to Abram, here's the releasing: get out of your country, from your family. Look at this releasing. And from your father's house. He said, you got to let all of that go. And it don't mean that anything was wrong. It doesn't mean that it was a dramatic and traumatic exit. It just means that the Lord said it's time to leave this familiar comfort zone. And he said, and I'm not even going to tell you where you're going, because he says, to a land that I will show you. Wow. Which means you got to move on faith first. And he says, and I'll show you when you get there, I'll say this is it. But he says, And then look at that's all. That's a lot of releasing. He says
That
your
is.
country, your family, your
Woo.
father's house, everything you've ever known. He said, everything, here it is, here's the to which you have become emotionally attached.
Wow.
Now, if you can detach from the things that you were attached to, if not because it was traumatic, but because the attachment was seasonal.
Right.
He says, now if you can detach from that, verse 2, here's what you're receiving. Then I will make you a great nation. I will bless you, which means that this blessing is not going to come until you let go.
Wow.
I will make you a great blessing. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And not only that, but I will bless those who bless you.
Wow.
He says, and in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Don't miss it. He says, you're going to fulfill your potential. And you're going to make a contribution
Yes.
to others.
Wow.
When you do the work I've called you to do. He says, good Lord Almighty. He says, the question is, can you release your country, your family, and your father's house? That doesn't mean that you ain't talking to them no more, because that's not what that means. It means, can you grow up and now individuate from the family in which you were raised? Those values and virtues are still in you.
Wow.
It doesn't mean, because we're so used to separation, and in our history, separation came by evil means and traumatic means and slave masters, and we just get used to stuff, and parents who got stressed out and walked out, and we just get used to equating departure with negativity. But if you could see that there are healthy emotional attachments, then there are healthy emotional detachments.
Yes, there are.
So he says, if you can do that, he said, I promise you, I'm going to bless you.
Wow.
I'm going to bless you. But you got to release to increase. May the Lord be with you. May the Lord bless you. And that's our prayer.
I got it.
To see you through this season. Next week, please tell somebody about what the Lord has given us to do every Sunday night here on Spirit and Mind. And we look forward to seeing you by the grace of God next time on Spirit and Mind.